that exist in the, underground, the astral spirit plane, 4D, 5D. The Illuminati has access to it. That's why they want the Cataclysmic War here, so they could bring us underground. I just want to remember where I was going with that May the 1st, 2024 timeline. That's where, from what I understand, something happened at the hands of these people going to that 8704 Broadway place. I got 5 of Cups here, lost. Yeah, I don't feel fully physical. Yeah, showing that right now. Look like a UFO right there, don't that? In the car. Our ancestors in the spirit plane, I was shown internally as well as externally, ride UFOs to be able to get from point A to point Z. Mine's the Heru and Nuwabians. You're one of the forerunners, aliens of our universe who look a lot like the Lamb entity with the big heads. There was something I wanted to say. I used to stay on Fig. Everybody got along. It was cool. People, Aisha laugh. MAGA had laugh. That's how it was for me on the PCH back in that August the 21st, 22nd, 2022 timeline. This ain't the Trump I remember, this Hitler motherfucker. That Elon Musk, look at him employing Mexicans. That guy was very, very, more libertarian, a liberal, like the fuck women, and that was his stick.
Let me give it to you something.
Okay.
This one. This for you.
Okay. Thank you.
All right?
Thanks.
We're going to make it.
All right, cool.
We're going to make it.
Because that May the 1st thing, 2024 thing with them people. I'm not in my right timelines. I'm not in my body. Everybody got along. And like I said, we were heading towards the new sun. Like was shown in Out of Limits episode back in the 90s. We were headed towards better times. I don't like what I see coming. I feel war. And I feel like it's rushed. I don't feel like any of this is real. I know it sounds like, impossible or Capgras syndrome, but, like I'm going to talk about in a couple of days, what I'm dealing with is very real. Just something ain't right. I don't feel I'm in my right timelines, my right reality. Something ain't right. I mean, running a Hitler fucking military parade, man. Look, I talk shit about wetbacks because I know what they are, but I don't even have much against them people. I was pissed about this Maria Tavares thing. I don't like any of that shit. I feel shit's coming to an end, and I feel like the person being caught up in very fucked up circumstances in a fucked up timeline. Dystopian realities, I remember right after May the 1st, 2024, seeing Succession, which is a TV show on HBO. I never heard of it in my timeline, being very, very big here. I remember The Wire being huge. My mother tuning into it on Friday, Saturday nights. I go online and barely a word about The Wire. There were a couple of other things too. I've seen different, her nose and everything with Madonna, who I was a big fan of, still to this day am. I've seen her in my timelines taking things. Madonna Ciccione, Ciccione. Her nose would be pug nose, or, she did a song where she was praying to God. When I was growing up, that woman, she seems to, she borrowed a lot from me when I was a kid. Had the same face and everything. PK, which I'm supposed to be incarnation of it. So by Zendaya. Anyways, she seems too knowledgeable esoterically, occult-wise, to be on such a low-ass level. You know, praying to God for forgiveness for being hypersexual because she got raped by daddy. That's why, you know, another thing too, you know, her dad died in that timeline. The Dan Name, whatever, the Jula dude. Johnny Dane. I swear, I remember this. He died some months ago. About a year ago, back in 2024. He's all of a sudden alive. So something ain't right with my reality. You know, it's not just internal, it's objective. You know, from what I've seen online, this man died some months ago. That was, you know, the biggest glaring example. You know, this plug, the plug rapper, or whatever his name is, you know, who's worshipped online. I never heard of him. He has nary anything about him on Wikipedia. Nothing about him. That was the biggest glaring example, was Johnny Dane. So something ain't right. But there was something I wanted to mention going back to May the 1st. Not being in the right timelines. There was something else I wanted to mention. It goes back to that May the 1st, 2024 timeline. You think about it. I totally forgot what I wanted to say about May the 1st, 2024, but it'll come back to me. It was a lot of the stuff that I learned in the spirit plane. So anyways, we're going to go ahead and do these cards. I feel like she's trying to mind control me right now. Maria Tavares, she did something by taking over one of my entity attachments to do that. That's an evil ass wetbag bitch. That's why I steer clear of them motherfuckers, because they evil like that. You know, a lot of these curses got placed on me by them. So I steer clear of them. They're very conniving. So I'm happy with the ice raids to a degree. I know something ain't right. It's just I feel like it's not my timeline. I ain't in my body, and I just feel like none of this is supposed to be. I don't feel like this is, physically speaking, real. So anyways, I feel it controlling me right now. In the obstacle position, we got the Four of Swords. We got the Four of Swords, which means correlates to being in a very bad position. Lying down, not in a good place. Two of Swords represents present position. You know what's going on. You feel it. You have a big decision to make. Seven of Cups, that's going to be the outcome. You see help coming from where you least expect it. In the subconscious position, we got the Ace of Cups. And I feel that what's coming towards you is something very positive. Something great that's going to help you out. And you sense it coming. The Hierophant, that's the Ghost position. To go to someone that's higher, bigger than you, that can help you out. The Magician, which is the advice card. Going towards something that could bring great things your way. Six of Pentacles. The energy that percolates, that's all around you. You have a lot of people helping you out at this time that you don't even know and can't even see. Seven of Swords, Fears in Your Hopes card. You see a lot of negative things taking place, and you ain't jumping into things. You're taking your time to, give deep, contemplation, thought. Lovers is the outcome. Somebody's going to come and assist you that you don't see. That's going to help you out greatly. With that being said, if you want a more personalized reading, it's fucking sick and sad when I'm dealing with this wetback bitch right about now. If I could just get this motherfucker off. 8704 Broadway, 87 in Broadway in South Central. Things would be great. Her and Santa Muerte, like I say, she shouldn't exist, and that's what covers them people. And somebody envies them, and that's why they fear her so much. In that culture, it's not really her, because she's a red, like my Cometian ancestors, Anubis and them, Rod explained to me. A taupe, a thought form. created by cartels of all things to get around facing the karma of their deed, that they face while alive, getting around that. With that being said, as well black and everything else. With that being said, if you want a more, you can petition God himself to get rid of her and to throw her out. I also think she under Satan or something. I got to get clarification on that. With that being said, if you want a more personalized reading, please contact me at readingbyterror22 at yahoo.com. I'm kidding, just that fuck with brother Steven, bitch. And I want to mention too is there's some really weird shit that's abound. I never talked about it online, but I remember having a dream when I first came here. I saw a Mexican maid. I saw a lot of wetbacks and dreams back then, and I feel like it's with the Santa Word and Maria Tavares shit, it adds up. There's something weird going on. She was a maid in a hotel in Santa Monica. And so, with that being said, I saw her, it was a long time ago, so let me try to sum it up. I don't know if she said anything. I don't think she did. But I remember being in the hotel with her, and at the time I was doing escorting and all of that. And looking out the window, and it was pitch black, like the eerie black that I saw with that, story that, vision that I saw back in, when I lived in my old apartment in Miracle Mile. And I saw, the eerie blackness, the neon signs pointing in. I saw something similar. It was a inkjet primordial darkness that reminds me of what it's composed of. And so as I was looking out, I noticed that everything started to go underwater. And there was something else I wanted to mention too that I'm being made to forget. The wetback trying to control my consciousness, so I have to watch out for that. Working with the ancestors and all of that, is helping out with that beanbag shit. Motherfuckers in the way random back in the day. They over the Illuminati. Illuminati can't touch them. They out their purview. Because they above the demiurge shit. They're the origin. Like, I mentioned the Dudex. I knew of a sheriff back in Malibu who was white, but his mom was black, who's connected to that. They one thought, and that's a wrap. We black people come from power. There's no reason for you to be lowering yourself, trying to associate with fucking wetbacks who come from the primordial darkness, who were created to just serve, and that's it, along with whites who come from the artificial light. I don't understand black inferiority. I think it comes from, it's derived from I don't want to say not knowing yourself, because in Africa they like that to some degree. But it's derived from, it could be the tendency, the agape or whatever they call that, omani or whatever they call that in African culture, the desire to want to get along. Man, what that guy wearing over there? I think it has something to do with It's the desire, I think. Can't even say my piece because she fucking with my consciousness so bad right about now. You know, speaking, I remember in my former timeline, you know, people talking about the sun being bright white and all of that, you know, making me think about the black sun, the new sun that's supposed to be coming. We're supposed to transition into the astral plane like my Cometian ancestors would do. You know, as a matter of fact, in ancient summer, to die was considered, you know, a curse. Transition, you're not supposed to die into your spirit body, astral, and then your spirit, you know, so you could have more density, weight to you. But I remember there being a great cataclysm. And what I wanted to say about, I think it comes from knowing it's kind of like a thing where you're superior and you kind of know it, and you kind of, you know, you don't look down upon, but you know better than the other motherfuckers in a way. But you got to watch out with that attitude, because, you know, you see the fake Jews, because we the true Israelites, that's how they're able to stay cohesive in their community. But there was something else I wanted to say. I remember seeing FEMA camps back in the day with police officers and all of that. We're headed for some very weird times. But that kind of cataclysm, you know, going back to that August 21st, 22nd, 2022 timeline. And I'm looking at all this evil shit, you know, play out. Playing, you know, physical. It's just, I just feel something weird is going on, and it just supersedes all this shit that, so I don't even screenshot shit about ICE raids. I just feel like it's something dark coming for humanity, but if done right by the right people, it could be our salvation. That sound cryptic, but that's all I can. Skin looks terrible because of these attacks coming from this wetbag bitch. So I'm posting the phone number for ICE. But you know, turquoise, by the way, reason why a lot of natives wear that is because that connects you in the spirit plane to your ancestors. With that being said, I got this back a couple of days ago. Spiritual. Anyways, with that being said, the reason why, and this is what I learned from during the spiritual experience, this is excruciating because I'm dealing with this wetback ass being fucking with my soul consciousness right about now. Like I saw her do my parents in that August 21st, 22nd, 2022 timeline. You know, have them down to their soul consciousness. My eyes don't even look right. They're all shiny, like something else is in there. And I don't like it. You know, I had somebody comment on my eyes, you know, probably a couple of years ago, and I totally agree. There's something not right. That's because of this evil shit with Maria, now with Maria Tavares and all that with her. tearing me up from within. From what I understand, she takes all of my stuff and puts it into her consciousness. Again, it's the reader, and I believe she can be contacted at 323-778 7748, but I don't know if that's really the number. But anyways, it has something to do with, from what I understand, as I said before, I found out from my dad I'm supposed to be connected to ISIS and all that. That's why it's good to have that. Anyways, with that being said, from what I understand, in the spirit plane, my Cometian ancestors, the Cometians, they come from a realm way outside of our own, from something higher than the source. It's connected to the creators of our universe. It's supposed to be, one of them is supposed to be the Dudeks of ancient Kemet, they call them, giant organic robotoid entities. A lot of people talk about the Lyrians and the reptilians, but there's so much to it, it's not even funny. And, like with Ra, they have names that, are spelled kind of like, what's the name of that guy who wrote about Nyla and all of that? H.P. Lovecraft. They have apostrophes in the beginning, just like with a lot of films, a lot of books be, right on target about a lot of shit that looks like a fucking mirror. Y'all see that shit? The reflection, that's just weird. And I got a mirror face in here and a mirror face in here. The other night I had her Ars Goetia, because that's our inner demons. The Ars Goetia, her Maman, try to come through the mirror, and I had a dream about that. But anyways, the Cometians come from a plane higher than the source. With that being said, the Illuminati, who pretty much all the shit they got, the demiurge, that comes from them. They can't rule over them. That's why Michael Jackson had so much freedom. That's why they couldn't fuck with him. With that being said, they do that to try to capture their ubiquitous and, omnipresent and just out of reach. I felt something reach out to me just now. And way, out of reach for us, for them, power, and the consciousness, the power that they have, it's a lot higher. I've been shown during this whole thing with black folks, the consciousness is higher than most folks. And Hecate is supposed to represent the higher part of the reptilian brain, and basically the Illuminati, and all of them, they can't put them under them. They, because that's the origin, that's the beginning. That's why they, like a Madonna video, I've even seen her in my timelines taking shit. From what I understand, all that shit is higher. It's higher, it's higher. And they can't fuck with them. So they try to take their power in so many ways, and the power is just, it's I don't want to say otherworldly, but it's beyond our comprehension. It's beyond our grasp.